Following the Karl Anthony Towns trade, people are already penciling in Josh Hart to be in the starting lineup alongside KAT, Brunson, Bridges, and OG and Anunoby. But I think there's a strong case to be made that the Knicks may be in a better spot if Hart comes off the bench and Miles McBride starts at that spot. We're going to dive into an in-depth breakdown and pros and cons of starting both players. But before we do, I want to hear from all the real ones in the comment section. Who do you think should be in the starting lineup next to the big four? Is it Miles McBride? Is it Josh Hart? Type 2 for Deuce, type 3 for Hart, and let me know your thoughts. You're watching Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. I appreciate everybody for stopping by as we try to go piece by piece and brick by brick to try to figure out who should be in the starting lineup for the New York Knicks. Right now, if I had to guess, I think it would be Josh Hart. And I think it would look something like this, with Jalen Brunson at the 1, and then you essentially have 3 wings. I know you got a shooting guard, small forward, and power forward, but the Knicks are ran a little bit different. I think all the great teams in the NBA kind of abide by this mindset. You got 1 lead guard, you got 3 wings, and you got a big. Bridges is a wing, Hart is a wing, and Anunoby is a wing. The question is, though, should you put Miles McBride in the starting lineup, scoop Bridges to the 3, and then kind of lengthen and depthen your bench? And then you could have a bench unit that has campaign with maybe Landry Shamet, Josh Hart playing the 3 and the 4 off the bench. Mitchell Robinson comes back healthy. And before that, you got Precious Achiuwa playing the 5. I think there's good points and really strong evidence to point that both of these could be the right decision. Let's start with one of the pros of starting Josh Hart. When you have Karl Anthony Towns as your center, you're somewhat giving up a little bit of size. You're not a small team because he is a true 7-footer, but there's been times in his career where he has shown that he can be just as efficient as the 5 and at the 4. And if you're going to play OG and Anunoby at the 4 with KAT at the 5, I would say you are a little bit smaller. OG is 6'8". He's more of your true wing than a traditional power forward. Whereas if you have Josh Hart at that 3, he is only 6'4", 6'5", but he's got a lot of heart and he plays a lot bigger than that. He's super aggressive on the boards. He's a better switch defender than Miles McBride on players who play the 2 through the 4. So you're overall just a bigger team, and I think you control the glass a little bit better. Pros of starting Miles McBride, though. It strengthens the bench, because if you do throw Deuce McBride in the starting lineup at the 2, with Brunson at the 1, Mikal, OG, and KAT, you have a super 6-man in Josh Hart. And it's more of a natural play of having campaign and Landry Shamet play, because if Deuce is coming off the bench, your 2 guards off the bench are going to be Deuce, and they are going to be campaign. I don't really see Shamet playing all that much, and I don't really like the idea of 3 guards coming off the bench that include McBride, as well as Payne and Landry Shamet. So it strengthens your bench if you start McBride, because you get to have Josh Hart come in and be that super sub. He can come in for OG. He can come in for Mikal. He can even come in for Deuce McBride. With Josh Hart, though, and we kind of already talked about this a little bit, the rebounding aspect. And I know there's been a lot of talk on Tom Thibodeau doing a lot of different things this year, right? More switching on defense, playing 5 out, more positionless basketball. There's 2 things, though, that are always going to be the backbone and the identity of a Tom Thibodeau team. Protecting the rim and rebounding and creating second chance points. And Josh Hart is a much better rebounder on both sides of the floor than Deuce McBride. Whereas if you start Deuce McBride, the offensive potential, I think, takes a leap. You are a true 5-out offense. If you start Josh Hart, you sacrifice a little bit of shooting. Josh Hart hits big shots. We love that about him. But throughout the regular season, most importantly, more notably, last season, he didn't shoot the ball all that well from 3. But if you talk about with Deuce in that spot, you got a guy in Deuce that shot 40% from 3. You get a guy in Brunson that shot 40% from 3. OG, 40+%. Bridges, nearly a 40+% shooter. And then Karl Anthony Towns. So with Deuce, you strengthen the bench with him starting, Hart going to the bench, and I believe you maximize your offensive potency with Deuce because it gives you another guy that shot above 41% as a catch-and-shoot three-point guy. I also want to take a look at some data between these two guys. We've got a lot of numbers to look at when it comes to different lineups with Josh Hart and Brunson and so on and so forth. So we're going to use offensive and defensive rating to break this down, which essentially means how many points are you scoring per 100 possessions and how many points are you allowing per 100 possessions. Last year, the best offensive rating in the NBA was the Boston Celtics at 122.2, while the Minnesota Timberwolves had the defensive best rating in the NBA at 108.4. Remember these numbers as we go through the rest. The offensive rating for when Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart were together, one of the best numbers in the NBA at 120.9, and their defensive rating, one of the best in the NBA with a net rating of plus 11. Look, these guys did a lot of winning together last year, and they're a lineup that's always going to produce big results. This might be a little bit better. When Jalen Brunson and Miles McBride were on the floor together, 124.0 offensive rating and a 110.7 defensive rating, a net rating of plus 13.3. I also thought it was important to look at three-man lineups as well. That included Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, and Miles McBride, because the only guys that are coming back that are going to be in the starting lineup guaranteed are Brunson and OG. So let's take a look with Miles McBride. Offensive rating goes down a little bit. 110.3, still solid, not great by any means. Only a 38-minute sample size in the regular season, so I don't want to draw any strong distinctions and proclamations because of that. But that defensive rating of 88 and a net rating of plus 22, I'll take that every single day of the week. The three-man lineup of Jalen Brunson, OG, and Josh Hart, better on offense, still really damn good on defense, and an unbelievable net rating of 26.4. In the playoffs, though, the two-man lineup of Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson somehow wasn't all that great. Offensive rating fine, defensive rating a little high, and you were being outscored by 1.6 points per 100 possessions. The two-man lineup of Jalen Brunson and Miles McBride in the playoffs. The net rating's positive. That's always good. Offensive rating about the same. Defensive rating a little bit better. So what does all that data tell us? There's really not a wrong decision here. And I don't think anyone should shut out, ignore, or think that starting Miles McBride over Josh Hart is a dumb idea. Because the data tells me that when Jalen and Deuce play together on the court at the same time, you get great results, just like you do with Josh Hart and Jalen playing together. Another pro of Josh Hart starting is you have a better wing switchability through 2 through 4. Deuce McBride can guard multiple positions. He can guard point guards, he can guard twos. I don't really love him guarding threes just because of the height factor. Josh Hart, he can guard some twos, he can guard some threes, and he can guard some fours. And when you have OG, Mikal, and Josh Hart all on the floor, you can be a much more switching team of opposing offensive threats that operate on the perimeter. Whereas if you start Deuce McBride, you have a bona fide point of attack defender. Deuce McBride is going to be that guy. He's going to be, as I like to call it, your defensive initiator. I know we always talk about offensive initiator, but defensive initiator. And I think in a lineup where Deuce McBride starts, you can somewhat hide Jalen Brunson on defense a little bit more. Because if there's two guards you're playing and one of them is a less offensive guard, more of a shooter, you could put Jalen Brunson on him. And I know Tom Thibodeau has talked about already that Mikal Bridges is going to be your point of attack defender. But I think throwing McBride in there allows Bridges and OG to do what they do best, guard more taller, traditional wing scores. So I think your defense and you would be better, and I think your point of attack defender would be maybe the best on this team. Clearly is Miles McBride. Pros starting Josh Hart, you just got the best 5 players on the court. If you asked anybody who the best 5 basketball players are on this team, it's going to be Brunson, it's going to be Bridges, no order, it's going to be Mikal, or as I already said, Bridges, OG, KAT, and Josh Hart. So you're getting your best 5 on the court. And I think more often than not, that will be the closing lineup. So you're getting more chemistry, more reps, and continuity will continue to build. Pros of starting Deuce, though, you have another offensive initiator. You have another guy that can operate in the pick and roll. You have another guy that I'm not going to say can consistently create his own shot, but Miles McBride is a better shot creator off the bounce than Josh Hart. We've seen that. McBride's got that pull-up 18-footer. He can get downhill. He showed off that ability to finish with the left hand at the basket this year. And you have another guy that can allow Jalen Brunson to play a little bit more off ball. Brunson was one of the best spot-up players in the NBA over the last 2 seasons. Deuce, who I don't think is a point guard, has some of those tendencies, and those two kind of tie together. Brunson could play off ball, more of an offensive initiator. You can use both of those things to your benefits. But maybe the best benefit of starting Josh Hart, maybe we just cut it all out after this. The Nova Knicks, baby. You can never get enough Nova Knicks. And I know we like to have fun with that. We blow that out of proportion. But I do think there is something to having your best players, having all played together, having great chemistry, knowing how they play. Look, I think the closing lineup should be Josh Hart. But I'm starting to believe that I think the starting lineup should feature Deuce McBride because of his point of attack defense and his catch and shoot three-point ability. And I think that would be the best offensive starting lineup in the league. A lot of thoughts that go into this. We'll close it with this here. You've seen all the data. I tried to give a fair argument for both sides. Pick a starter. Deuce, Hart, type 2 for Deuce, type 3 for Hart. I would start Miles McBride. I would. I know it's all about firepower and your top 5 versus their top 5, but it's a long season. And I think having a guy like Josh Hart come off the bench would bring this team bigger rewards than a guy like Deuce McBride doing it. Who I don't have a problem with Deuce. I think he should be starting. I don't know. I'm still stuck in the middle. You decide. 2, 3. Let me know. And make sure you are following me on social media. I'm on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. Same handle on IG. Hit me up over there, and let's go Knicks!